the top stories, Federation records another COVID-19 related death. Antigua and Barbuda signs air services agreement with In the top stories, Federation records another COVID-19 related death. Antigua and Barbuda signs air services agreement with France, and lifelong residents mourn loss in Mariupol. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Tuesday, the 29th of March, 2022. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis has recorded another COVID-19 death, bringing the total now to 43. The result was displayed on the March 28 situation report. There remain 0 active cases and 0 recoveries. The virtual series Leadership Matters continues this evening at 8 o'clock with a conversation and with some of the Federation's religious leaders. Joining Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris on the program will be Pastor Lincoln Connor of the Antioch Baptist Church, Reverend Mark Christmas, Superintendent of the Methodist Church, St. Kitts Circuit, and Prophetess Dr. Debbie Isaac of Rivers of the Living Waters Christian Center. The topic will be St. Kitts and Nevis, One Nation Under God. The show will be hosted by Jacqueline Bryan. Leadership Matters simulcast on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM and other participating radio stations, and is also streamed live on social media platforms including the Facebook and YouTube pages of the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service. Head coach of the St. Kitts and Nevis senior men's national team, Austin Huggins, is pleased with the performance of his team despite the 1-0 loss to Andorra on Friday. More in this report.
Coach of the senior men's national team, Austin Deco Huggins, was satisfied with the performance of his team despite a 1-0 loss to Andorra on Friday. In Andorra, Jay Aliez of Andorra scored the lone goal just moments before halftime in the 46th minute. The Sugar Boys hit the upright and the crossbar twice during the match, the latter from star striker Keith Roy Freeman in the early part of the second half.
The players, they were up for the challenge. They were well motivated and they played exactly how I wanted them to play in terms of our tactics. Defensively, we were quite well, but we made a blunder in the last minute also in the first half, just before we got inside. Come back out for the second half, but we made some adjustments and we came out with a different mentality and were able to hold them to 1-0 in the second half. But yeah, we performed well in my estimation.
Coach Huggins said the main objectives of the match were achieved from the performance of the team.
We are satisfied. It's a nice place. We had good treatment from the people of Andorra. We want to thank them for their hospitality and the way how they treated us. It was great. The guys also, they behaved themselves well. As true ambassadors of St. Kitts, so we are very proud of them. And they should use this opportunity as a way of gaining valuable exposure and experience, which I know they will. And then we could go from strength to strength as we go along into our nation leagues.
With the Andorra match in the bag, the Sugar Boys now turn their attentions to intense training as they prepare for the upcoming CONCACAF Nations League.
Regionally, Antigua and Barbuda has signed an air services agreement with France, replacing an informal arrangement in place since the 1940s. The signing took place at the Prime Minister's office on Monday. Jamie J. Roche reports.
Aviation Minister Sir Robin Yearwood and acting head of France's diplomatic mission to the OECS, Marc Mathieu, signed the agreement at the Prime Minister's office Monday morning. The French representative says the document modernizes the country's air services arrangement.
This agreement defines a new bilateral legal framework in line with European law, including modern clauses on safety, security, and fair competition.
He says the agreement sets out a predefined number of air frequencies and provides a precise route schedule.
Antigua and Barbuda has designated 2 airlines, Liat and Calvin Air Helicopters, to operate on the routes agreed with the French. The French have in turn designated 4 airlines, that is Air France, Air Antilles, Sembat Commuter, and Sembat Executive to operate services on their behalf. With the exception of Air France, all of these airlines already currently operate into Antigua and Barbuda. We look forward to seeing Air France very shortly.
Sir Robin says he hopes the agreement, which is the first between France and an OECS member state, will lead to enhanced partnerships between the designated airlines. Jamie J. Roche, ABS News.
Guyana's President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali has revealed the establishment of a poultry hatchery and egg production initiative in Pakuri village. The president sees this initiative as fuel for Guyana to be self-sufficient in the agriculture sector and as a local stimulant for the economy. Here is the details from Antonio Day.
That we are going to bring together the poultry industry in this country. They are already growing their own corn and soya, so that by no later than first quarter 2024, the corn and soya that is required for the production of feed will no longer be imported, but will be produced right here in Guyana.
This was Ali during his visit to Pakuri village, formerly St. Cuthbert's Mission, on Saturday. Upon visit to Pakuri village on Saturday, in observance of the village's 133rd anniversary, President Ali outlined plans to launch Guyana's first regional agricultural investment forum, an exposition slated for May 19th to 21st, giving Caribbean countries an opportunity to present solutions in realizing the reduction of the food import bill by 25%, which is likely to occur by 2025.
We will have our first regional agri-investment forum and expo, in which the entire Caribbean is going to come forth with a singular solution to realizing the reduction in our food import bill, that is reducing it by 25% by 2025.
Meanwhile, Tushao of Pakuri village, Timothy Andrews, expressed gratitude to the Ali-led administration for their continued support towards the development of the indigenous community and is optimistic that his government will do more for the betterment of the community.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 2 months from now, the St. Cuthbert's Pakuri village will have a 7-room, self-contained guest house to host outsiders, foreigners, and it is all because of the vision of our government.
Pakuri village, formerly St. Cuthbert's Mission, is an indigenous community located along the Mahaika River in Region 4. It was named after Arawak chief or cacique Pakuri, who was the founder of the village. The village is primarily a logging community, but hunting is also done on a large scale, since there is a high consumption of wild meat by villagers. The community is currently under the leadership of Tushao Timothy Andrews. This is Antonio Day reporting for HGP Nightly News.
Internationally, Russian bombardment has devastated the Ukrainian city of Mariupol and trapped tens of thousands of residents without power and with few supplies. A spokesperson for the mayor said nearly 5,000 people have been killed in the city since the Russian siege began. Here's more.
The besieged city of Mariupol in Ukraine is on the verge of a humanitarian catastrophe. After weeks of heavy bombardment from Russian forces, Mariupol's mayor, Vadim Boychenko, on Monday said all civilians must be evacuated from the city to allow them to escape the crisis. However, many are trapped there without heat or power and scrounging for food from the debris. Ukraine on Monday said it was impossible to create any safe corridors, citing intelligence reports about possible Russian provocations along its routes. The mayor's office said that while almost 300,000 people have already fled, about 160,000 still remain. Reuters could not independently verify that figure. Against the sound of shelling in the distance, one resident named Gennady was salvaging what was left of his life.
37 years I proudly worked as a shoemaker, and I was left with nothing. No workshop, no work, nothing.
Another resident, a design engineer named Irina, spent her whole life in Mariupol, working in one of Ukraine's largest steel mills. She described her life as beautiful before Russia invaded her country more than a month ago. Now she and her family have been forced to take shelter in the remains of their apartment.
Now we have nothing, just nothing. We are left homeless. They have broken everything. We have nowhere to go.
And food has also been hard to come by.
Yesterday, accidentally, really accidentally, my husband grabbed this from somewhere. It was not even humanitarian aid. Somebody just opened some warehouse with frozen fish. He grabbed 8 fish. From that we will cook soup for 4 days. 4 days for 8 people, because there is no food at all.
Russia denies targeting civilians and blames Ukraine for the failure to agree on safe corridors for those trapped. Moscow calls its invasion a special operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. A spokesperson for Mariupol's mayor said that nearly 5,000 people in the city, including more than 200 children, have already been killed.
As those suffering from long COVID search for a way to alleviate their symptoms, some are warning that miracle cure scams may be on the rise. Gillian Code reports.
Most of the people who get their diagnosis of long COVID do so because they have advocated for themselves.
The struggle of finding a treatment for long COVID. Those suffering say they've had a hard time finding a doctor who can treat their symptoms. And for those who do, it's only a treatment, not a cure.
When there are desperate patients out there, we know from history there are practitioners who will step up and sell unproven therapies and sometimes really ridiculous stuff.
When those suffering from long COVID are tired of over-the-counter medications and typical forms of pain relief, Caulfield says they may look into alternative ways to manage their pain.
We do not want to blame those individuals who are out there searching.
With varying symptoms and doctors puzzled on how to find that cure, Caulfield warns those suffering to not put their hope in companies promising to cure them of their symptoms.
And often they get frustrated and they turn to these unproven therapies, the alternative therapies, and I get it, but right now I think it's important to continue to follow the science.
In the meantime, Barris suggests those suffering from long COVID should document their symptoms to show their healthcare provider.
Most people don't have doctors who are recognizing the symptoms and saying, hey, you know what, you might have this. I was lucky in winning that life lottery of having a doctor who actually said, I think you have this, before I had to suffer for months and educate myself.
In Calgary, Gillian Code, City News.
And now for the weather. Current conditions are cloudy skies with light showers. The temperature for today is 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are a light breeze of 5 miles per hour from the east. Seas are moderate with waves of 3 to 5 feet. Shallow pockets of moisture and cloud patches moving across the area could trigger brief shower activity today. The weather forecast in St. Kitts and Nevis today will be partly cloudy with a 40% or a moderate chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 6:24 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 6:07 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.